everyone, and thank you for coming or for coming back. Today I'm going to show you how to make pavlova. I am so excited about this video. I sort of became obsessed with pavlova recently, mostly because it just became summer, and so it is the perfect season for pavlova that is just piled high with all the fresh fruits that you can find. So all the ingredients and the measurements are listed down below, and we can start making these. So the first and most important ingredient in pavlova is egg whites. Now ideally you want these egg whites to be room temperature and a little bit old. So ideally if you can separate these eggs and then leave your egg whites sitting out for about a day at room temperature, it just sort of helps them to whip up a little bit because they are less tight, like they would be coming right out of the fridge. If you can't, then not to worry. If you can even just leave them for an hour to warm up to room temperature a little bit, that is perfect. So we're gonna go ahead and transfer our egg whites to the bowl of a stand mixer. You can also do this with a hand mixer. If you don't have a stand mixer, it is just the same. So go ahead and add your egg whites as well as some cream of tartar. This is just a stabilizer. If you don't have it, then you don't need to use it. It just helps to stabilize your meringue a little bit. And we're also going to add a pinch of salt. Now we are going to go ahead and whip this on high speed until it becomes a medium peak. Now people talk a lot about medium and soft and stiff peaks when you are making meringue, and they are all different and they are all sort of important stages that you need the meringue to be at before you add your different ingredients. So we're going to look at that just a little bit. So the first stage I would call a sort of frothy or foamy. I wouldn't even call it a peak. It is just a really frothy beaten egg white, and that is just when there are nice large bubbles in your whole egg white. There's no solid liquid in the bottom anymore, and that is the first stage. After that, there is a soft peak. At this point, your meringue will form a peak when you pull your whisk out of the bowl, but it will not stand up or stand up for very long, and if you jiggle your whisk around, it is very easy to move the peak. At this point, it also is still really easy to tell that your meringue is just made up of a bunch of big bubbles. When you keep beating, you will reach a medium peak. Now at this point your meringue will look a lot bigger, it will have increased in volume, and when you pull your whisk out it will form a nice peak that falls over itself a little bit. And at this point we are going to turn it down to a lower speed and slowly add our water. Once all of the water is added, we can turn it back up to high speed and slowly add our sugar. Just make sure that you don't add your sugar too fast, make sure it is a nice slow but continuous stream. After all your sugar is added, you are going to go ahead and keep beating it on high speed until you reach stiff peaks. Now this is the peak that I would say is most used in baking. When you pull your whisk out of the bowl, it should barely move. You should have a nice stiff peak that stands up straight, and if you pull the bowl out, it should be able to flip upside down with all the meringue in it, and nothing should fall out. And at this point your meringue should be nice and smooth and glossy, and we are ready to use it to make our pavlova. So the last two things we are going to add is a splash of vanilla and some cornstarch. I suggest that you sift in your cornstarch to make sure that there are no lumps in your pavlova, and then we're going to go ahead and just fold the vanilla and the cornstarch in until it is completely incorporated. Now at this point we are going to transfer our pavlova mixture onto a parchment-lined baking sheet to bake, and at this point you could just make one large pavlova if you were interested by putting it all onto one piece of parchment and spreading it out to form a nice beautiful pavlova shape, but I decided to go for some mini pavlovas. So here on my parchment paper I've drawn out some 3-inch circles using a cookie cutter. Do make sure that when you are piping your pavlova onto your parchment that these circles are facing down so that you don't get pencil marks or pen marks on your pavlovas. And then here I also have a piping bag with a large French tip on it. You can use a star tip if that's all you have, or just a round tip, or otherwise you can also just spoon it on with a spoon and then make a design in it using the back of your spoon. But all I'm going to do here is load up my egg white mixture into my piping bag, and I'm going to pipe nice big kisses of meringue onto my parchment paper. Once all of your pavlova mixture is on the parchment paper, we're going to come back and we're going to form a little divot in the top of our meringue kisses. That is going to be the spot where we fill our pavlova with cream and curd and berries. So you're just going to go ahead and come back with the back of a spoon or an offset spatula, and you're going to carve out a nice little indent in the top of your blob. This doesn't need to be too deep of an indent because it should sink a little bit while it is cooking in the oven. So just make it a really nice shallow indent. Once all your mini pavlovas have their little indents, we can go ahead and put these into the oven at 250 degrees for 45 minutes. Now these are cooking at a very, very low temperature because more than cooking these pavlovas, we are just trying to dry them out. And it is important that you try not to open the oven too much because again, it is a low temperature, so we want to keep it consistent. After 45 minutes, you are going to turn your oven up to 275 degrees Fahrenheit, and you're going to cook it for another 10 to 15 minutes just to form that nice outside crispy shell that is on a pavlova. Now you are okay to open the oven now because we are just going to check it every once in a while. What you want to feel is just that the outside of your pavlova has firmed up and there is a nice sort of crust on the outside. Once there is a crust on the outside of your pavlova, you can go ahead and turn the oven off and leave them in the oven to cool for about 30 minutes to an hour. Now we keep the pavlova in the oven turned off so that it will continue to dry out a little bit and it won't crack if it is brought out into the cool or cooler air too quickly. This is a lot more important if you are making a large pavlova. It is much easier to crack it. I find that the mini pavlovas are a little more sturdy because of their size, and it's not as likely that you're going to crack them. While your pavlovas are cooling off or while they are cooking, we can work on our toppings and fillings for the pavlova. So the first one we are going to make is a lemon curd. Lemon curd is very traditional to put in a pavlova. I am also going to make a raspberry curd, which is a very similar process. So I'm going to sort of show you both at the same time. So the first thing you are going to need is lemon juice or raspberry juice. And now I know that raspberry juice isn't something that you would normally find in a grocery store, so we are going to make some raspberry juice real quick. So to make our raspberry juice, we are going to combine our raspberries and our water in a pot, and we are going to cook it on a high heat, and at the same time you are going to smush and smash the raspberries down with a spatula to try and get as much raspberry juice out of the raspberry as you possibly can. So you'll just need to cook this for about 5 minutes or until your raspberries are nice and tender, and then we can go ahead and strain these through a fine mesh sieve to get our raspberry juice. Now, if you haven't quite got the amount of raspberry juice that you need out of this amount of raspberries, then you can go ahead and top it off with a little bit of water, but I was able to get just about the right amount. So now for our curd, you're going to start by adding your raspberry or your lemon juice to a pot, as well as the zest of half a lemon. Now we are going to bring this up to a boil, and at the same time we are going to whisk together our egg yolks and our sugar. Once our liquid has come to a boil, we can go ahead and pour it slowly into our egg yolk and sugar mixture while beating constantly. This is tempering our egg yolks so that they don't scramble while we are adding our hot liquid. Next, we are going to add your eggy, juicy mixture back to the pot, and you're going to cook it on a medium to low heat for a few minutes until it gets nice and thick. Once it has thickened, you can strain it out into a bowl, and then you're going to add your butter and stir it in and then leave it to cool down. And that is your raspberry and lemon curd. You do want to let these cool down to room temperature or even chill them before you use them on your pavlova. You can just go ahead and set these in the fridge. If you are trying to get it to cool down quicker, then you can go ahead and put it in an ice bath and stir it every once in a while until it is cooled down completely. The next topping we are going to add to our pavlova is fresh berries. So I chose some raspberries and some strawberries, but you can use any fruit that you like really. Any fresh fruit would be great, something like blueberry or cherries or just anything that is fresh at the time that you are making your pavlova. So I'm just going to go ahead and chop off the tops and quarter my strawberries and wash them off as well. I'm just going to wash off my raspberries and then they are ready to use. The last thing I'm going to make is a little bit of whipped cream. You should make this closer to the time that you are ready to serve your pavlova, because if it sits for too long then it will start to deflate again, but if that happens to you then you can just whip it up again for another 30 seconds to 1 minute until you have stiff peaks. So I'm just going to go ahead and whip up my cream and add a little bit of vanilla and a little bit of sugar, and then that is ready to go for my pavlova. So now all of my toppings are ready and my pavlovas are cooled down and ready to go. So you want to see that your pavlova has a nice crust to it obviously, and you want to see very little color. Ideally it would be pretty bright white, but if you have a little bit of browning, that is okay. So to assemble this, we are just going to take one of our pavlovas. Ideally it should have sunk and you should have a little bowl in the top, but if it hasn't sunk then you can just go ahead and press down and sort of break the top to give yourself a little spot to put your fillings. So I'm just going to go ahead and put my mini pavlova on a plate, and then we're going to fill our little indent with some cream and then top it with 1 or 2 of our curds and then top it with some fresh berries. And this is our completed pavlova. These are so adorable. Honestly, when it's one big pavlova, it is pretty, but when it is a mini pavlova, it is just so cute to look at. And you can see that the inside is nice and soft and marshmallowy, just like you want a pavlova to be. And these are honestly so tasty. I love the sweetness of the pavlova and the curd and the fresh berries and the cream. They just work so well together. And I also really like these mini ones because they keep for a little bit longer. If you don't top it, then you can keep them for maybe another day or almost 2 days, and they will be just fine to serve. So I hope you like these as much as I do, because again, they are so cute and I am just a little bit obsessed with them. So I hope you make these, I hope you enjoy, and I will see you next time.